Greetings, this is Rabbi Aaron Boxt from Temple Beth Shalom in Ocala, Florida, back with my podcast again. I want to shift gears a little bit. I've been talking about Israel a lot, and there's a lot more to say, a lot more to ingest, digest, think about, reflect on. But I want to take my podcast in a different direction this week. I want to share with you something that might surprise or may not surprise any of you. You know, you've heard this saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, I'd like to say that that's not completely true. So every summer, for the last 13 summers, 12 summers, I have gone and served as a faculty member at URJ Camp Coleman. As a faculty member, I wear many hats. I do a lot of teaching, working with campers on services because there's services every night, serving as a role model to the campers, Judaically and otherwise. But also, I get to play around camp a little bit and see all the different things going on at camp and be a part of the major celebrations at camp, like Color War, birthdays and such. But I learned something about myself that I probably already knew, but really didn't think about very much. And anyone that knows me well is probably thinking to themselves, of course this is true. This has always been true. Why are you now just realizing it? Well, it happens. And what I'm speaking specifically about is I have a tendency to be the kind of person that wants to jump in and just be a part of things. I want to help out. I want to be involved in what's going on, and it's not intentionally to upset anyone or offend anyone or try and take away someone else's job or anything like that. It's just I've always been someone who likes to be involved with what's going on, and I'm also one of the first people to offer to help, even if help isn't necessarily warranted. I'm going to be someone who offers to be there to help out, to do whatever needs to be done. Which is, I'm sure, wonderful. I don't want to speak so highly about myself, but it is the way that it is. But when you go to a summer camp, or when you enter into a school, or when you enter into any kind of organization that has systems in place, responsibilities that individuals have, leadership from various different groups, and not a hierarchy, but sort of an understanding as to whose responsibility is to manage this and whose responsibility is to manage that, and so on and so forth. These systems in place are incredibly important and really are a big part of how this organization, this school, this camp, whatever, functions properly. Think of, in a congregation, you have a congregational board, and you have responsibilities with different committees and different committee heads. It's that kind of idea, but in a much greater scale, because let's just take a camp, for example, and I'm speaking about, of course, URJ Camp Coleman, which is where I was for a couple of weeks, but this applies to any summer camp, I'm sure. You have a system in place. You have a director and assistant directors and leadership, supervisory in roles as supervisors, and then you have let's call them miscellaneous staff. As a faculty member at Camp Coleman, I'm kind of like a part of that miscellaneous staff. There are certain things that I'm going to be asked to do that may have nothing to do with what I do as a rabbi or my career or anything like that, but it's a place that I can fill in, a place that I can be put to serve a function. And that happens quite a bit, I'm sure, not just to me, but for other faculty members who are at camp. This past summer, what I observed about myself was my desire to be, to serve a different or more, to serve as a bigger function than I was needed. And what that means is there were a couple of times where, I would offer to help a particular situation or a particular person, and I really wasn't needed. And my desire to offer to help sort of took away some of the time. It occupied some of the time that was needed to actually dedicate to whatever task was needed by the person who was responsible for that particular task. So I guess I can give an example. My oldest daughter was selected to run the Color War. She was part of the MAC team, and there was a service during Maccabiah, during MAC, and I was selected to be the rabbi that worked with them and just sort of helped organize the service and start the service and whatever. They did the majority of the work. I was there sort of as, just to sort of help guide things along. Because of the weather and this and that and having to change some things around, there was a conversation that was had about the potential or the need to perhaps not have services that night. And I happened to be sitting next to the person who was having the conversation. Me being the person that I am, trying in my mind, my intention was to be helpful. It didn't come across that way necessarily. I said, well, I'm the father of one of the MAC team coordinators. I'm certain I could go over there and sort of gauge how they feel about it. The intention was good. However, there's systems in place, and there is a leadership supervisory hierarchy that needs to handle things. What I learned in that moment is sometimes my desire to be helpful, sometimes my desire to insert myself into places actually serves as a negative function. It negatively affects the ability of whatever needs to happen. And it's hard for me because when I have lived my entire life a certain way, this is a lesson that I think that I'm sure that I wish I learned a long time ago. And I'm sure there are many people in my life who could hear this podcast and would say, well, we tried to teach you that, but I wasn't ready to hear it at that point. But now, seeing how every little thing can impact negatively, positively, however you want to look at it, every little action, every little thought, every little comment, because you're talking about a community of 500-ish campers, 200 staff or so. So you're looking at around 800 people or more living in a space that is confined, meaning there is a beginning and an end, and there's an entrance and an exit, and there's a functionality there. Sometimes it's possible to disrupt that functionality if even if your intention is to be good, because that wrench that you put in there could actually not fit. Maybe they need a screwdriver if we're using a tool here. What I really learned this summer is when I'm in my professional world, my professional life, and in every relationship that I have with people, sometimes it's best just to observe. And if I'm needed, I'll be asked. And when I'm asked, the answer is yes, of course. And that's lovely, and people know that about me. But it's the jumping in at first sometimes that causes the friction. And when systems are in place and I'm a temporary piece of that, it's important for me to understand that I function in the way that I'm needed, not in the way that I need. Because it's not about me, it's about camp and the ability of camp to move forward rather than stay stagnant. It's a big lesson, one that I will try to use in my non-Camp Coleman life as well, but certainly one that will help me in future years when I'm faculty at Camp Coleman to function in the way that is needed, not decided by me, but decided by those who actually are the ones that keep the system going. So my applause, my kudos to the staff, leadership, and regular staff at Camp Coleman. It is a fine run machine, and I'm just so happy that I've been able to be a part of it, and will hopefully continue to be a part of it in the future, remaining in my place and being available if needed. I wish you an early Shabbat Shalom.